Okay. I want to ask this question in particular now. This is really looking at the other question, but it's now asking it in a little bit of a different way and in a more concrete way. I want to make it practical now for you. So let's start with this one. What is community mobilization in your context? What would you say it is?
Getting the community together.
If we can use the microphone.
Getting the community together.
Okay, talk about that.
For one purpose, all coming together with a common goal.
What's your work?
What's my work? I work with individuals with autism.
Okay. So talk about that in terms of what you've just heard in terms of autism.
So how, in my role in Carrie's place, I help people find employment or continuing education.
Right.
So I would bring a group together to help build employment opportunities for individuals. So that would be my community, would be gathering companies, people with more knowledge than I have to help build opportunities for individuals with autism.
What would be your ultimate vision for employment for people with autism?
To have them in jobs where they're happy, where they're doing a service to the community as well, and they're growing.
Mm-hmm. So in a sense, we could ask the question, how could we create a community in which unemployment for people with autism could not exist? Mm-hmm. Right? How do we create that kind of welcoming community? You can right away see who your partners are, because it's way beyond autism, right?
Yes.
So it'd really sort of be a society that really values work as an expression of well-being. Makes sense, huh?
Yes.
So I need to keep going. Others? Debbie? Oh. Kath, is it? You want to just flip your thing around, your name tag? Thank
knowing
you.
your assets
Catherine.
in the community.
Knowing your assets.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that. You're dead on.
I think to mobilize a community, you have to know what assets are out in the community, what's missing, and how you connect to them and who the connections are.
It's very good. You know, in Vibrant Communities, which is our national project, one of the 5 learning themes is what we call asset development. And what we basically say is that we want to take stock of what a community has going for it rather than what the problem is. So instead of taking stock of the problem, taking stock of poverty, taking stock of autism, what we start to say is, what kind of community do we have, and who do we have in this community, and what do we have in this community that we can bring together? And when we bring it together, it allows us then to use that to focus on the issue at hand. So how do we mobilize our assets? You call it bringing it together. Paul, how about in your context? Because you work with gangs, huh? Sort of?
Not specifically, but I do come across students and youth that are involved with gangs.
Right.
But as far as collaborating and networking, I think we need to make our networking more intimate. So we need to come up with ways of engaging each other by, organizing specific events where we actually sit down, make something out of it, have conversations with each other about what each other's agencies do, whether that's a dinner or some sort of community event that bonds two agencies. If you know the people that you can network with on a more personal level, then you're more likely to access their services. They know you on a more personal level, and that's going to reduce the gap. And with our agency specifically, we've been doing that with the Murray McKinnon Foundation, and that's really worked. And we have a pretty close kinship between the two agencies, and I think we need to do that with every surrounding agency as much as we can.
That's an interesting point. I mean, I'm not sure if having people meet each other is enough, and that networking is a good use of your time. I'm just going to play with this a little bit, okay? I think relationships is what you're getting at. Because I think the relationship you have with the foundation, right, is different than the relationship you have by networking and getting to know people. So part of it is that we assume that by having these networking and gathering kind of events do build relationships, right? And I think what we can tell, it's like this, like Bob from the hospital in Orangeville, who said these meetings have all been very helpful but of no help, right? So I think that's what we need to do. So part of it is, my suggestion is that we need to go beyond networking. And we need to be having purposeful conversations about what it is that we're wanting to work on together. And in many ways, if we network, it continues to be about what we're working on, right? And I think what we're trying to do now is bring people together based on their passion. So, perfect. Keep going. Give Paul the microphone back. No, I want, no, say it. Say it, Paul.
Say it the way I should.
Say it. No, say it. Go with it. I wasn't being critical.
Simply sit down and have lunch with people and hang out and let's go play basketball.
But isn't that, well, we don't play basketball. If we play basketball, it'll probably be much more productive than being networking sessions, you know?
Amidst all these, amidst, sitting down, maybe, having some sort of, hosting event together, we can talk about each other's services and what we're able to provide and open up a forum to speak about how we might be able to start interacting with each other and how that can create a connection so that when a situation does come up that we can't handle ourselves, who could we reach out to and also work with?
And I think it's really about deliberately working with others.
Yeah.
And that's the outcome of what you're talking about. And I see that's what you're doing. The question is, how can we begin to be creative, and how do we even let our staff do that? Sometimes just giving people a little bit of a taking others out for lunch budget, which it seems to be, I don't know how we've sort of taken that away from people, but in terms of getting to know someone so that we're really not just doing a referral to the other person, but we know the person that we're referring to.
Businesses do it all the time.
All the time.
Why can't we do it in a human service?
Exactly. Exactly. Jarek?
It's Yarek.
Yarek. Yarek.
I work with high-risk gang offenders.
Okay.
And I just want to reflect on your comment to go beyond networking. My reflection is that we often go not as much beyond, but kind of beside, in between networking. Networking is great, and having worked in the community for many years, I often utilize my own relationships, my own connections to mobilize systems, not as much community, but systems, because the existing systems are not that responsive, are not quick. There are layers of decision making that you have to sometimes go through, and it often works to make this informal phone call to a colleague, to somebody you know from elsewhere, from a gathering like this, and mobilize other systems. I have this kid. I don't have a formal diagnosis or formal assessment, but you could help. Could I count on you? And it's a kind of, it's not a personal favor because it's not, but it's something.
But you know each other.
Yes, and I'm glad to reciprocate in the future, and it works, and it does work, and it strengthens your position in the community, and if you have it's integral in my understanding. There's nothing unethical about it, because ultimately it's for the client's best interest. Okay,
so building those core relationships is an important part of this.
A little twist on that, though, is after having worked in addictions with people with severe mental health issues for a long time, I became a system expert at weaving through and a positive manipulator in getting service for my clients. And in doing some learning around working for system change, it was proposed to me that perhaps I was enabling the system to continue to work ineffectively by going behind it rather than coming in front. And so for me, when I look at community mobilization, particularly for my work, which is working to alter the way that we work with people with mental health and substance use issues concurrently, is that the entire community and system needs to see this as an issue, and that we can't accept that the system's just broken, so I'm going to go under it, because if that person doesn't come in contact with me and doesn't come in contact with someone who knows that I have a connection with Debbie and the police and can try and arrange that, then it's not improving the health of the system as a whole. And that was a huge learning for me, and it really sat uncomfortably in my stomach for a long time, because that's how I'd worked, as this, advocate and frontline worker, and then I thought, well, maybe I need to do bigger work around the system and change how we actually address this.
Well, that's interesting, but you know, most of us are not put in an environment where we can do either. So either we're going to advocate for our client, which means going around the system, right? And particularly if we can't advocate the system, we're powerless to change the system. All we have power to do is to advocate for our client, which is then to work around the system that's not working for the client. I mean, it's interesting, huh? So, I mean, I think it's another reason that the administrators in this room know that that's already what a lot of your staff are spending their time at. An enormous amount of energy figuring out. So then you start to say, well, we don't have time for this, Paul. I get this all the time. We don't have time for these large-scale conversations. We don't have time. We're so busy. We've got so many clients. We're so underfunded. All of those same reasons over and over again. And I keep saying, yeah, but for 20 years, you know, and often administrators can look back 20 years in their own career. What's changed? You know? Like, what's changed? And how about, is on this topic or?
Same topic.
Good, keep going. And then we'll come over here and there.
Sometimes I find to promote change, you have to find a common dialogue. Common conversation.
An issue like that you're working on
even
together.
Language. I know I've sat in some meetings and I glaze over when people start talking about the LIN, and I didn't even know what a LIN was. But you have to learn it, and you have to learn the common conversation or the common dialogue between each service. And then once you learn that dialogue and what their needs are, then you can go forward.
It's very good. Two more comments, and then we're going to move on.
Okay, and I'm going to just shift a little bit, because the organization or the program that I work for is very grassroots. And it goes back to some of the things that you said this morning, that a lot of the things that we do to mobilize the community is involving the people themselves. And it's great to have all the players, and we've been very effective, and we're moving in the right direction with the professional players. But you need the people that it's going to impact. You need them at the table, because quite often what we think they need and what they really do need in order to immobilize them is, it needs to come from them, not from what I think.
Well said.
I don't live or walk in their
Very well said. And, you know, honestly, I'll talk about this in my conversations, but it actually changes the entire conversation. Yeah, there's no them. It's one thing that you have to eliminate in every conversation is the them, because there is no them, because they're all there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Catherine?
Yeah, I'm looking at this from a diversity perspective, in the sense that here in Durham, we have a lot of diversities, including ethno-racial diversities. And in 3 years that I've worked in Durham, and I don't see a lot of people of color or first-generation immigrants, and I'm working in the field, let alone having a say as a resident in the community. So that's something that I think we need to look at as a community.
Absolutely, and bring that together. Okay, for this group, thank you everyone. Round of applause.